Artlist.io.
When my mind gets tired of waiting, it'd be wasted time to save this. Is it so wrong? I wanna walk away from all the changes.
Music licensing reimagined.
Need to cut off my ties now. I've been living a lie, is there really a life? Don't try to save me, I'm done with patience. I'm running towards the open door. I'm taking my chances.
Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io.
Good evening, everyone. It must be quite late. How was your day? Or, what is your plan for the next day? Welcome to Hannah Klein's Time. Hannah is very grateful to those who have been supporting her. Hannah's podcast and newsletter on Substack are reader-based platforms. Sponsorship and partnership offers for her Substack newsletter are welcome as well. Also, Hannah does extensive research to create her newsletter.
Good evening. How are you? This is Anna. Um, it has been very difficult to watch what is happening in Iran. People are killed. It's simply a mass murder that is going on. And I talked about this with Maccabi, today's guest. By the way, he is a professional sports therapist. Well, he has treated, he has cured um, athletes from New York Yankees. It is, well, he told me it was a very fascinating experience for him. But he moved to Israel anyway, and he he was an sports therapist for the Olympic athletes who represented Israel, which is also amazing. And he has been, I will explicitly say this, he has been treating IDF soldiers. He does not charge them, and he treats them. Well, he does. He gives massage to them. I don't think. I'm sorry to say this, but I realized how much people are not aware of what happened on October 7th, and I'm sorry. People might think it was just only one day, but it is not. If you look at the 12-day war, that was the the deadliest war against Israel in the history of Israel. Anyway, it was a very meaningful conversation. So please listen to our conversation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon from Israel.
Yep, it's 4:30. It's almost 4:30. Like, yeah, because of the time, like daylight saving time, like I have to just adjust my head all the time. There's no daylight saving time in Japan, so.
Yeah, that's nice.
But how are you?
I'm doing very good, thank you.
Um, so today, I think it's the first time I put this as main topic. It was very difficult for me, and I think that it must be really, really difficult for many people to discuss. Yeah, but it's about what happened on October 7th. And I think that there has been so many lies about, how Israel reacted and, what Israel is facing right now, um, you know, by the media coverage. And, at the same time, I have to say that, there are somehow restrictions on how to report at the same time. So, it's very strange, but I think that um, you know, s- I think we can talk from the point of humanity on what happened and also how people feel about, the incident or the terror attack. So maybe could you start by maybe saying, start by from, what happened on October 7th, I have to say, because it was Shabbat, you know, it was during Shabbat, and it was during the holiday. So,
Yeah. So, yeah, it was both Shabbat and it was also Simchat Torah.
yeah.
And I remember, like I do every morning, I was at the dog park. I took my dog to the dog park, came home,
Hmm.
and the phone siren went off. And then all
So
of a
was it
sudden,
like,
I,
yeah, it was like seven something, right? Yeah, seven or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
6, 7, yes.
And so all of a sudden, one went off, and then another went off. And within a very short period of time, the sirens just kept going on and on. And we were all going to shelter because that's the rule. When the air raid siren goes, you go to a shelter. Now, where I am sitting, it happens, is the shelter in my particular apartment. Not everybody has one. Some of the shelters are underneath buildings.
Hmm.
And inside Tel Aviv, there are even bigger underground shelters for people to go to.
Oh,
So you have to understand that we didn't know what was happening. Okay. We still within, I can't even say what amount of time, to be honest, between the time we realized that it wasn't just rocket attacks and that it was something much, 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 much worse. Um, I don't want to really get into the security failures because that's something that still needs to be investigated.
mm,
But there was a delay between the time of the attack and the time that help arrived. And the stories that came out of that day are something out of a nightmare, to be completely honest with you, or out of a horror story, or maybe more accurately, out of a 15th century kind of war
yeah.
where people break into your homes, they're
Oh,
murdering they're
yeah.
murdering families in front of their parents. There are crimes of sexual offenses in front of families. People are being literally dismembered, burned alive. It goes on. I mean, people who were hiding in shelters,
Mm,
when the terrorists showed up, they threw grenades into the bomb shelter in
yeah,
order to
I
make sure
saw
they,
it. Yeah,
they killed everyone.
yeah.
Um, so this is basically what October 7th was. And as the day went on, and it took days for us to understand the real depth of what actually happened. Because once we got to the end of the count,
Hmm.
it was 1,200 people had been killed, over 4,000 had been wounded, 250 hostages were then taken
Yeah.
into Gaza.
Mm,
And as an American, I will compare it to 9/11 in the sense that, at least since the Yom Kippur War, Israel's sense of security and belief in the security establishment had not been um, shaken or rattled. And the failure of October 7th to anticipate or to stop the extent to which the attack happened was a traumatic event for the nation that I believe we are still healing from. The trauma of the attack, the trauma of what happened. I think you have to understand there is still a hostage who has not been returned. To all of us in Israel, it feels like a family member who is still not returned. We all feel this still to this day, very intensely.
mm,
So the fact that Ron Gvili is still being held, even though he's deceased, is extremely painful for all Israelis. Now, the level of trauma is different with each person. Not everybody gets PTSD from experiences like this. There is a lot of PTSD, I would suspect. The Israeli government has actually asked for help in dealing with the level of trauma that not just the families who went through and the survivors went through, but other Israelis throughout the country who saw videos. I mean, they broadcast these videos for everybody to see as psychological torture. I happen to have seen the 47-minute uncut video. I felt like it was important for me to see it, to honestly witness what happened that day and make sure that I bear witness for the 1,200 people who will not have a voice.
Yeah.
So, because of that, when you asked me to come, I felt like it was both my duty and my responsibility, not just as an Israeli, but as you pointed out, as a human being, to bear witness to what happened so that the world knows the truth of what happened.
It's very strange. I know that, there is a difference among, people in different, among, nations, but I do not understand when it comes to Israel. You know, there is a strange sense of, I don't know, bias. It's not only bias, I think, anymore. It's like a torture in a sense. And it was a torture to even listen to the biased news because it was very, very bad to me. The Japanese news broadcast. It was wrong, not just wrong, but they talk about the morality of what is happening, and the morality that is pointing to was completely wrong. And I was, it's so painful. It was so painful at the time when October 7th happened. It was not just the anger that I had, but it was a deception, by people, and what it was something that I heard for about a decade, which was Anra's voice, just came into my 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 mind, and you know the United Nations is at fault, but it's saying as if the organization is saying as if they were the organization of justice. However, look at Mr. Guterres. I'm sorry, he is not taking things seriously enough for me. Really, really. I mean, I cannot really talk about this very often, but I really wanted to say this, for a long time, and I was very angry too. It was um I do not understand why people can treat, a human, ultimately, I think we saw the nature of Hamas, like, explicitly what it was, and still we have no room to justify it. But there has been some kind of justification all the time, and say, it is as a result of the military operation that had been, going on for decades, and that's why Hamas, fought back. Like, that is a terrible description. The, the nuance of,
It's a justification for a terror attack, which there is no justification for this kind of slaughter. There just isn't. Um, I have written in the Times of Israel about the 58 years of lies. And I bring that up because you brought up the quote unquote occupation. This is a matter of legal debate, but according to the concept of uti possidetis juris, a colony emerging from colonization takes on the borders of its former mandate. And that mandate would have been including the land of Judea and Samaria. Now, on day one of the war, of 48, I should say, when 5 nations attacked Israel on day one,
Yeah.
Jordan illegally seized that land and held it from 1948 until 1967. So it's
Exactly.
important that we really understand the context of that. And it was only in the context of another multi front war in 1967 that made Israel go ahead and act first in order to prevent itself from being attacked on multiple fronts by multiple countries. And it was only then that Israel reclaimed the land in a defensive war. Had Israel not done that, there may not have been an Israel in 1973 when the Yom Kippur War started. And the only thing I want to say real quick is from 1948 until 1967, it's important for people in Japan to know that Jordan ethnically cleansed all the Jewish people from Judea, Samaria, and the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. So when you hear today about Israel creating communities across the Green Line, because there was no 67 border, just for the record, this is an armistice line. So when you hear about communities that are being created across the Green Line, what's happening is what's the word? I'm sorry. We are correcting a historical wrong, which was the ethnic cleansing of the Jewish communities in those areas.
Yeah. I really, really, I have invited Dr. Anna Welf. She's a specialist on aura, and she was also talking about what happened in 1948. But this I think last year, right? Last year, NHK started to talk about a Nakba. Like, excuse me. That's an Independence Day of Israel. These people did not mention anything about the Day of Independence about Israel, but they started to talk about, you know, the Palestinians being taken over their own land. I think that they have to, as I explained to you, I first realized that there are a vast majority of people who do not have any knowledge of what the Hebrew language is about. Okay. Like maybe like Christians, some Christians may know. However, I know of, Christians supporting Israel and Japan, but it's like, I'm sorry. I really don't have words on this. And then, you know, and then, Zionism, it's considered like a radical like ideology because of the academics explaining that way all the time. When you look at the timeline, of the Japanese or comments, that I see against the embassy, Israeli embassy. I really see them alarming at some point. as those misunderstandings lead to terrible things, really.
I mean, look, anytime we're mislabeling something, it leads to something bad.
Right.
Okay. The first thing is, and this is just a historical fact. Prior to the Oslo Agreement or the Oslo Accords, which didn't become finalized,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Welcome to getting older. According to the Oslo Accords,
Mm-hmm.
the fact of the matter is that the Palestinians had a chance to have a state. Okay, they had every chance to have a state.
Yeah.
They said no. The fact is, they walked away without making a counter offer
Mm-hmm.
and began the Second Intifada. Now, without getting too much into the Second Intifada, it was extremely violent and bloody, and it involved suicide bombings of buses and cafes and restaurants and discotheques.
Yeah.
And it was because of that, to be clear, that the security barrier went up. Okay. What I was going to say earlier, I'm sorry, was there's never been a time in history prior to the Oslo Accords when a Palestinian state of any sovereign nature ever existed at any time in history. Okay. It's really important to remember that. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. Okay. And when the Ottoman Empire crumbled after World War I, okay, the Middle East got sectioned up, excuse me, into the different mandates: Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Palestine. And so when people say that the Jews came and took their country, that is factually incorrect. There was no country there. There was an offer for a country there. They
Mm-hmm.
could have had a country in 1948,
Yeah.
just like the Jews could have had a country in 1948, but the Arab League decided to vote no.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what prevented a Palestinian state from being created in 1948.
It's See, and then instead they initiated a war against Israel, and that's what they do the whole time. And uh, I really personally do not like Arafat at all. He's a terrible being to me.
He
Like,
was a terrorist.
you know,
He was a terrorist.
yeah, he was a terrorist. But I really do not um see, like, I don't understand why people do not understand why it's not a genocide that is happening in Gaza. It is not indeed a genocide. I invited many people, lawyers, and, they were legally explaining that. But, it's from human perspective, the Israelis, I have to say.
I have a
And,
theory. I have a
they
theory
are
on that.
not discriminated people, okay? They're not discriminated people. Like, they don't discriminate because of religions. I really have to say this because, I mean, Israelis are very accepting towards, not just towards, Christians. There are Muslims and, 2 million Muslims.
We have 2 million Muslims living in this country quite happily, being able to do whatever they want.
Mhm.
That's why when people, okay, so the theory I have about why they believe it's genocide, it's a couple of things. One, a war has not been covered like this before, not to this extent. There have been coverages of war like this, but not with phones and so on. That's one. Two, you have to look at the fact that you're talking about a military force like Israel going up against a force like Hamas. Now, even though they had tens of thousands of fighters,
Mm.
they obviously didn't have the kind of armed equipment that we do. When you have 58 years of lies, starting with, again, the Nakba lie, okay, that we came and we took someone else's home. It's not true. We asked Arabs to stay and build the state of Israel with us, okay? Some were chased out, I won't lie. There were people who were ethnically cleansed, but the majority left because a war was happening. One. Two, Arab leaders actually exaggerated the claims of what happened, and they scared their own people. And the people were so scared that instead of fighting like the Arab leaders hoped, they fled because they were scared of what happened. So the reason why 700,000 people left was because of multiple reasons, not just because the Jews came and chased the Arabs off of their land. That's just factually incorrect, okay? Now you move forward to 1967, when we took a preemptive action in order to save our state, because, again, we were only 11 miles across. Okay, this is important to understand. At its narrowest point, I might be wrong, it might be even more narrow. It might be between 7 and 11 miles at its narrowest point, okay? Now keep in mind that Jordan occupied that land. So that whole area was an enemy country on our border. So when Israel took that action, it was labeled an occupier. So now you have a colonizer, even though Jews were coming back to their ancestral land. Could you imagine Japanese being called colonizers in Japan?
Yeah, that's
No,
something,
you couldn't. And that's what happens when you call Jews colonizers in the land of Israel, or occupiers in the land of Israel. It's factually incorrect. It is the land of our Genesis. It is the land of our people, and there has been a continuous Jewish presence in this land for 3,000 years, even during our exile. It's really important to understand this. But what happens, and it's a Nazi technique that Joseph Goebbels used, called the big lie. And that is where you saturate the airwaves with enough of the lies over enough of a period of time, such that when you get to the next big lie, it is much more easily accepted. So you start with colonizer, you move to occupier, then you have ethnic cleanser, then you have the other things of intentionally killing. Let's talk about the war in Gaza, intentionally killing Gazans. That's factually incorrect. Colonel John Spencer has been there multiple times,
Yes.
and he wrote an article in Newsweek that basically said Israel has taken more care to protect civilians than any other modern military at any time in modern history. Now, what makes this horrible and so hard for the rest of the world to see is that Hamas used their own people's deaths as a political tool to get sympathies from people in other countries to put pressure on Israel to get them to concede. But it's important for the Japanese people to know that the charter of Hamas, the very thing that their raison d'etre
Nazi chart.
is to kill all the Jews
Yeah.
and to destroy the state of Israel. So that's who we had to go to war with. We didn't choose the war. It was thrust upon us. And we can't, after this war, after October 7th, we can no longer have a terror group like that on our border. It is unfair for the world to have asked us before October 7th
Mm.
Since 2006, okay, that's 17 years, to tolerate thousands of rockets being fired at us on a regular basis and to be asked not to do anything in return. I would ask the Japanese people, what would you want your government to do if a terror group was firing thousands of rockets into your civilian populations on a regular basis? Now, I understand because of the history of the Japanese people why pacifism became a thing. I really do understand that. What I would try to explain to the Japanese people is to understand our experience. And that is, after the Holocaust, we don't have the privilege of being pacifists anymore. Because the last time we tried to be pacifists, we were exterminated. Almost 6 million people were exterminated. We are surrounded on all sides by countries who, even if we've made peace with them, may still not be friendly. We made peace with Egypt, and there were terror tunnels going from Egypt into Gaza. Lebanon, there is still a terror group that refuses to disarm. And right now, the Israeli army is attacking them in southern Lebanon because they are concerned that they are going to continue the attacks. It's important to remember to the Japanese as well. Hezbollah out of Lebanon attacked Israel from the second day of the war, October 8th, all the way for a year. Now, we have had a ceasefire, but the Lebanese government was supposed to disarm the terror group, and they have been unable to do so. The terror group has been taking further action in southern Lebanon, which is against the ceasefire there. Also, you have Syria. We all know that al-Jilani in Syria, ISIS is in there. That's a big problem. Israel has moved in to protect the Druze community because we have many Druze in northern Israel who have family there. And you have what's happening in Iran right now. And I think it's important for the Japanese people to understand this. The largest ballistic missile attack that ever happened in the world was Iran attacking Israel. And it happened in the last 2 years. So all we have ever wanted to do is live in peace with our neighbors. Every time there was a war, we offered to live in peace with our neighbors. But we can't live in peace with our neighbors if they keep trying to kill us. And that's the situation we really find ourselves in right now. And I just want to say one more thing, if I can. I think it's important to understand, what is Zionism? Is it okay if I do that now?
Sure. Please.
Most simply, Zionism is the belief of Jewish self-determination in their people's ancestral homeland. Okay? Now, there are some Jews who would say that is every inch of land from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And there are some that say no. I'm not going to get into that discussion today because ending the two-state solution is a much longer discussion than I think we have time for. But all Jews want is to live peacefully in their land. We have tried many times to make peace with our neighbors unsuccessfully, but it is still a radicalized and militarized society of which half the population still supports the acts of October 7th. So I would ask the Japanese people, would you want a state on your border? Would you give a state on your border to people who are sworn to your destruction, or who are still approving of these horrific events that took place on October 7th? I don't think so. I wouldn't ask the Japanese to do that.
Yeah, I think that that is the intention of the United States as well. In many ways, there has been U.S.-Japan alliance, and at the same time, that protects Japan from um, putting the nation into the danger of being invaded by Russia, China, North Korea. That has been going on for 80 years. And um now, there has been, well, there has been updates that from over the time. I really have to say this, but there have always been some protests, claiming they're pacifists, including Fusako Shigenobu. She was a Japanese terrorist who ordered Tel Aviv massacre. I don't think the Japanese would probably know what Tel Aviv massacre is. That happened in 1972. But um, she claims she went, well, now the media lets her talk in front of the camera and people listen to her speech. I wonder who she is talking to, really. She could be speaking to her comrades. If she were talking on air, anyone can listen to her. And the revolution, she talks about the revolution. Japan has to change. People have to be protected. She's very, very delusional. I do not understand why the media um, honors her, her, her sense, her speech, her idea. I do not understand it. And she has a daughter who is a journalist. She calls herself a specialist in the Middle East. The first thing she said about October 7th, the Palestinians fought back. Is that a kind of expression? Is shameful. If anyone did that kind of event as a kind of resistance, that is so shameful and just not just disgusting. I do not have words how to describe what she said, really.
There's no look. You mentioned the UN Secretary General. He justified it as well at the beginning. He
Mm.
said that this did not happen in
Yeah, he
a vacuum.
changed his words.
And the minute he said that, he became irrelevant because there is no excuse, there's no justifying the acts of October 7th,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah. I don't think that, he, um, well, Francesca Albanese, for example, I don't think that, she's telling the truth all the time. And at the same time, I can point out some people who are obviously lying. And, um, Antonio Guterres, he has been irrelevant, but, he says one thing on one side, he changes his mind and he said something else. I hope that he stops doing that, really. You know, as a chief secretary.
So much for Antonio Guterres. Look, the fact of the matter is the United Nations has become completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's become completely irrelevant. It's rotten from the inside out. I would just refer to anyone watching your podcast to check out Hillel Neuer and see the information he has uncovered, both about Francesca Albanese and about UNRWA
Mm.
and the United Nations, because it's
Very, very, easy for people to understand, I think. I
that
was, I have been listening to him constantly, And at the same time, I was trying to say something, you know. Um, um, regarding, um, um, I think regarding the United Nations, you know, oh, the general description of the media, I think it's very, very dangerous right now. What the media do is that Trump administration is trying to play power politics, and the United States from has become like an oligarchy. And and now it's trying to negotiate with Russia and China. And now, like, that is the reason why, the United the United States has taken over. Well, like, it's not taking over. United States has, and the corporations in the United States have invested to Venezuela, for example. And this Chavez, and this they took over the interest because of.
Well, I would just remind you
Mhm,
that um, Mr. Maduro was indicted on narco trafficking
mhm,
in a U.S. court. The United States arrested him, just like they did with Manuel Noriega back in the day in Panama
mhm.
for a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Um, you obviously can't deny the other issues, the economic issues that you're talking about. But the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump, President Trump, made a very specific statement about Venezuela, and he drew the red line and he acted on it. And I don't know what to say about that, to be honest with you. Um,
Yeah, actually, I do not know exactly what to say, but describing the whole thing simply is totally wrong, I think. you know, the United States being a dictator the whole time. For example, this time against Iran. They're describing that way, really.
I'm sure they are. Look, the fact of the matter is 20,000 people just got slaughtered in Iran by their own government. Okay,
Yes,
that's the numbers.
yes.
Now, if you truly are a pacifist, that should horrify you. That should horrify anyone. And the answer isn't, oh no, do nothing, because more people will be killed. So at some point, someone in the world has to stand up for these people.
Mhm,
Now, there are people who are saying, well, why didn't they stand up for Sudan? And why didn't they stand up for Myanmar? And we all know what the answer is to that question. The answer is it's always politics. It's always about interests, national interests. But the fact of the matter is, and Japan is keenly aware of this, having being a country with so little resources,
mhm,
if Iran were to flip to a democracy,
mhm.
constitutional monarchy, whatever the people decide that they want to have, and God willing, it will happen, it won't just be good for Iran. It'll be good for the Middle East and it'll be good for the world because the leading sponsor
Mhm.
of terror will be out of business. And that's good for everyone.
I really believe that, and from 2015, back 2014, 2015, um, I an American veteran faced death penalty in Iran. I don't know if you know this, but he faced death penalty first, and then he was his sentencing changed. But he first got death penalty, and then there were a couple of people who were who are dual nationals, Iranian and the other, for example, American or British, for political reasons, Iran arrests them and ask for the ransom the whole time.
Uh,
They negotiate for the ransom the whole time.
yeah,
And, you know, uh, over the past 10 years, they have executed 10,000 people quietly. And every time they do that, they hang, in public. And, there are Japanese broadcasters there. They never talk about it. I understand for security reasons, there are many people who will not talk about it, but I'm not in Iran and I will talk about it. It's terrible. It's horrific, and it's against humanity to show such scene to the public. Just
yeah, we have a thing from the Holocaust. Silence is complicity. To stay silent is to be complicit. So we can't be silent, and neither should Japan.
I don't, for the same, if they talk about Uyghur, the Iranians are facing something terrible,
Yeah,
and if even though they're outside the country, they still worry about their well-beings or security, being
yeah.
attacked, and
They're
so
not allowed to do it. Look, let's be clear. The people of Iran are not free.
no, they're not
Women
free at
are
all.
killed. Women are killed for showing their hair. Okay, that was what the previous protests were about. But this is look. There has to be a point, in my very humble opinion, where you stand up for what's right, and this is right. And I hope the president will do something about it.
I really do hope so too, really. To be honest, I really hope that President Trump is going to intervene and stop this killing. I mean, it's a killing that is happening. Khomeini ordered, the corpse to shoot at the civilians.
Yes,
That's why
and
there
those
are so many
documents
civilians.
now. Those documents. I was watching Tusi on Tusi TV, and yeah, those documents were released. He signed the documents. It's horrible, and all the world should really be jumping on board and helping the Iranian people in this time.
And you see, I, I just, I explained a little to you, but um, this indiscriminate killing that Khomeini is doing against the civilians, that is what happened on October 7th, really.
Yeah,
And
except
they
he's
do
doing
it
it
in a
to his own
terrible,
people.
yes, Hamas was ordered, you know, for sure, because a few days after October 7th, the Iranian officials appeared on TV in Japan. Okay. He didn't show up the face, but this person said that um uh they did internet course for Hamas how to make weapons. I don't think so. They they sold weapons to Hamas for sure. But they did internet courses. They said that.
It would not look. They. I hate to give Hamas credit for anything because it's horrible, but some of the things they did, they used very They used what they had, and they found ways to use what they had in
Yeah.
an aggressive and offensive way.
But, I really think that, I
I
really think that,
real quick,
mhm,
the numbers from October 7th
mhm.
to what's happening in Iran, proportionally by the capita of our countries, if the number of 20,000 is correct as reported, then proportionally what happened in Iran is equal to what happened in Israel that day.
It's just so awful.
Horrible, horrible. And will we stay quiet, or will we speak out, and will we act, and will we try to make some action happen? Just as we tried to make people come to our aid on October 7th, as they should have and didn't, so should people now go to the aid of the Iranian people. They need it.
I really, really feel that because that is what has been happening in that country ever since, especially after Khomeini took over the country. Really.
1979. Yeah, I
And
agree.
and I there I don't know the best choice for the people of Iran, but but as a Japanese, I would probably think that Reza Pahlavi would be the best choice for the nation because, but he should be probably be more symbolic as,
He said he was willing to be a transitional leader and let the
mm,
Iranian people decide for themselves.
yes,
Okay.
yes, that's what I heard.
Um, I'm listening to all these people in, like Goldie Gamari and Elika Laban.
What, yeah. Hmm.
Um, and even if you just watch the videos coming out on the streets,
Hmm.
they are chanting Javid Shah, Javid Shah, which means long live the king. They
Hmm.
want their king back. Whether it will be a monarchy or whether whatever, that's for them to decide. But the people should get to decide. This regime in Iran has completely hijacked this
Hmm.
once great nation. They don't have water. They can't afford food. What is there for these people to go back to their homes for? There's really nothing. The time is now. The world needs to, I really believe the world needs to get on board.
Yeah, I really, um, you know, um, I did not expect to see this in this age because I thought that, the world was not going to change forever. Look at China, for example. China was probably not going to change. I felt that way, but for the same reason, I'm not sure. But, China consists of several, for example, ethnic groups. And obviously, I don't think that it's going to stay like that forever, like Soviet Union. This,
I mean, look, China's facing serious economic challenges right now.
yeah,
Okay. And as goes the economy, normally so goes the regimes.
yeah,
This is what
exactly.
happened in Iran.
Hmm.
It's happening in Russia. It's happening in China. So,
I
I
don't,
mean, it reminds me of the Berlin Wall falling just because that happened. And then all of a sudden, nation after nation in Eastern Europe suddenly flipped to, democracy. And this is what people had hoped for the
mm,
Arab Spring when it first started. And
mm.
it's why now people are almost horrified about what could happen in Iran if it doesn't go well.
Yeah, I really, really see Iran, but it's not only about Iran at the same time. And I think that, Russia, is, Putin is pretty much upset about, and that's why he shut out all the internet system, right?
Yeah.
I really, really think that um, the economy in Iran affects China and also Russia, and um, it is a very good sign that Iran is failing, really. And I think that the preemptive attack that Israel, was committed last year weakened the economy for sure. And I thought that that would happen, but I did not expect, people rising up this much. And I really hope that, um, Japan is a democratic nation, and I really hope that, um, at this point, I think that President Trump should think of people of Iran. And I really pray and hope that something good is going to happen to them.
Amen. I'm with you there.
So,
I'm with you.
but what I saw, what happened to people of Iran, reminded me of what happened on October 7th, really. And
Yeah.
I hope that people, who listen to this podcast, and especially the Japanese people who translate this, or, whoever, do understand the cruelty, and um, it's not like the sense of probably murder in the case of Japan. It's not like that, that happened. And, they gouged the eyes, the babies beheaded. It is just unimaginable description that I heard
Yeah.
from the victims. And it's, and ICEJ, International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, has been involved in trauma care of many people, even now.
Hmm. That's true.
And
Look, there you have a lot of trauma. There's a lot of traumatized people. Okay,
but
even me now. When I hear a siren on the street,
mhm.
I stop and I really pay attention to what kind of siren it is, and
Oh,
that's trauma. Even in a small way, it's trauma.
yeah, I really think that it has not happened to the Japanese people, and that's why people are not gonna feel realistically. However, I explain, some of the facts to the people in a manner that is not shocking. It's shocking enough for people, really. Even my description, what happened and what is happening, for example, in Iran, and what the Iranian government does against the civilians. They hang people in front of in public to show and rule people by fear, which is
Yeah,
ridiculous. I mean, people cannot be ruled by fear, ultimately.
it's much worse than that. It's they've taken everything from them.
Yeah,
They've taken everything from them. They took their water, they took their natural resources, they
yeah.
took their pride, they took their honor.
Hmm.
Those are certainly things I think that the Japanese people could understand what that's like to have taken from you.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that it is, I hope that this administration, I have a hope for this. And she is, uh, she's pro-Israel, really. From, I really can tell that she is. And, um, I'm not sure about her decision on one state or two state solution. However, um, I I think that, I really, and when I get into this, this is going to be a very long discussion. But I think that the opinion of the Israelis, which have been ignored for decades, have to be honored. Because there
Yeah.
have been this intifada, for example, like we talked about, this these were just the first one and the second one, the first one with the stones, the second one with the weapons. I mean,
Be clear, they weren't just weapons. They were suicide bombers.
yeah,
They were people
suicide.
getting on buses and blowing themselves up, going into restaurants and blowing themselves up. I would encourage people, if you want to look at one of the more famous ones, look at the Sbarro pizzeria bombing
Oh
in
yes,
Jerusalem. Um,
it
no
it.
country can tolerate that.
I don't think that Japan should tolerate that. And when I think of the terrorism, that's the kind of crime that Japan will have to um, handle with I think, centralized and also stronger intelligence. Japan has very small level of intelligence and doesn't have control over the terrorist attacks or scams or all these things enough, really. So I think that in the future, it's not about somebody else's problem, what Israel is facing, because this type of, suicide bombings, for example, I mean, it's not, I'm sorry to say this, but what happened at the end of the war, Second World War II, it's not like the Japanese. I'm sorry to say this, but it's different by culture, really.
It's different.
And and people need to understand what the nature of what is happening in
Yeah.
Israel is really. I really think that way because um, there are a lot of well, Japan has allowed some immigrants, and now like we have to handle some various crimes. Well, we have to handle crimes of what is happening. Well, which are happening in the West, for example, like Charlie Hebdo, and all these type of terrorist attacks that Japan will have to handle in the future. And Israel has been successful, rather successful in doing it. And still that there are such terrorist bombings or terrorist, suicide bombings. And in case there are people who are against the government, the Japanese government, there may be suicide bombers. I mean, it's not
I
about
mean, look, they're not doing it anymore, although they tried recently in Jerusalem at a bus stop and it was caught and stopped.
mm,
Um, I'm trying to think of the year right now, and I can't remember which year it was, but there was an intifada of running people over with cars here in
oh
Israel.
yeah, yeah.
Then there was the stabbing intifada, where
Mm,
they were just running up to people and stabbing them multiple times.
yeah.
So, you know, you can't make peace with people who want you dead. This is the bottom line of on what Israel is facing right now with the Palestinian society. Palestinian society wants no more Israel, and Israel wants to make peace with the Palestinians. In its most simple explanation, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I read yeah, Colonel Spencer's John Spencer's, Palestinian society system of you know, praising and also giving pensions to the terrorists.
Right. The
You know,
pay for slave program.
yeah. I mean, it's not acceptable, and I don't think that Japan should be accepting that, really.
Agree. I would agree with that.
Right?
I would like, yeah. I
So,
I
and
can't
I don't,
sorry.
it's
Sorry, I had to check that message. It looked important. It's fine.
okay. So I really think that, see, it's not just about glorifying the terrorism, but those who commit terrorist attacks and come back to the country, and they are treated like uh, a hero.
Rock stars, rock stars. Look, they name their squares after people who have killed people.
Yeah,
They're paying stipends to the families of terrorists for life, dependent upon how many
yeah,
people are killed.
exactly.
It's horrible. It's just horrible.
And I really wonder, I really wonder how much the Japanese government considers this part and is involved in the peace, after the war in Gaza, really. And, I really wonder how much the Japanese government considers uh, the terrorist acts and also this pay to slay system,
I
really.
think to them, in my opinion, it seems like it's something that happens over there, right? If you just look at Japan's voting record on Israel, right? The United Nations.
Yeah, it's disappointing in a sense, but
Yeah. Look, I understand every country has to vote in accordance with its own general interests, but there
mm,
are some moral guidelines
yeah,
that we
exactly.
in democracies should be standing up for. And other democracies under existential threat should be that thing.
Yeah. And I really think, the media describes as if, and also the academics describes as if, Israel's information is based on propaganda and, all these things, just, it's unbelievable. But, I think that the preemptive attack that happened last year, that was something that happened at the right time, at the right moment. I really think so. I really, really think so. And I don't know why, but this, I discussed with Ambassador Gilad Cohen too, this uh, Zionist regime, this
I'm sorry, this
Khomeini
Zionist what?
Zionist regime, the Khomeini likes to describe Israel using Zionism, Zionist regime, in all forms of Zionism, and put Prime Minister Netanyahu's name in between, and make it like Zionist regime is about Prime Minister Netanyahu to Japanese.
I would just say this. I think people in Japan I think if there are Christian people in Japan who read the Bible, they
Mhm.
will remember a passage that talks about the Jews sitting by the rivers in Babylon
Yeah,
and weeping when
yeah,
they remembered Zion.
hmm
So the desire to return to Zion has existed for 2,000 years, ever since we got kicked out. It only became um, a political movement when enough power came to pass that it could even be brought up in such a way. It just never existed in the past. And this is the thing again that I would explain to Japanese people. Zionism isn't new. Zionism is something we have been waiting for for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
That's why we look at Iran and we know what they're feeling, because we know what it's like to be denied your self determination, because it happened to us.
Yeah. Exactly. I really think so. I agree with you, and I really started to think it's a serious problem that the Japanese people do not understand what Zionism is, because you cannot just trust the information that you receive without investigating, right?
I always tell people, don't just use one source. Okay?
Exactly.
Don't just use one source. You talked, look, again, there are Israelis, I'm not going to say there aren't, who do believe that every inch of land should be theirs up to the Jordan River. Okay. And there are those Israelis that don't. There are those Israelis on the left who feel like give them everything they want just as long as they make peace.
Mm.
But I don't know if that's feasible either. And the bottom line is there may be a time for peace and coexistence, but it's not right now
Yeah, I don't think
because
it's
Israelis
wrong.
don't trust them
Yeah,
enough to do it.
yeah, that's probably what many people do feel right now in
Yeah,
Israel. I have spoken with my friends, but they have similar opinions, really. You know, right to the left, it does not matter, really. I really feel that way. So,
it's accurate.
yeah, exactly. And probably it's about time right now. And I think that you have your day and your plan. Maybe lastly, maybe could you a little bit introduce yourself because it's so amazing, you know what you do.
Okay, sure. I am a sports massage therapist and performance specialist. I have worked with the New York Yankees for 21 years at their rehabilitation and and physiotherapy facility. I have also had the honor of working with Olympic athletes here in Israel and traveling to world championships with them, as well as working with Paralympic athletes and traveling to world championships with them. I also want to say, and I didn't get a chance to really explain this, I've had the honor of giving many soldiers therapy at the beginning of the war for the first year because
Oh,
they needed it. I didn't charge them anything for it. Whenever they needed something, they could come get it, and I was
mm,
happy to do it for them. Um, as far as what you also had asked me early on, what I've done for the hostages, I haven't had direct involvement with the hostages, but every single day since the beginning of the war, I have been fighting to make everyone aware that they all needed to come home from day one. And that includes Ron Gvili, who we're waiting for right now.
yeah, it's very. I was, you know, I actually you might be surprised. I have this book.
God love you. It's
And
amazing.
when do you know when this arrived?
When,
On the first day of Hanukkah. It was
how
so-
about that? That's called timing.
Yeah, it was I was surprised. But you know, I have a lot of books which were written by the Holocaust survivors. And I have many guests whose families experience, you know, Holocaust. I think that people really, and you know, I'm not sharing the entire story that they tell me beforehand, or I mean, I just ask them to share what they're able to share. However, um, it is not something in a part of history. It is painful for people. It is, and it's, people just start to, okay, the Japanese media like to say as if, it were, the Jews, were deceptive against Jews, another Jews as well, and so forth. But, it is not just that. Okay. It was a systematic killing that happened, really. And I
Real.
think
It's
that,
important to
I
remember.
think I think that it is important to talk about the moral side, really. And, right now, the Japanese primary school kids do not know who Anna Frank is. It's like, I was appalled because I first read about her when I was in kindergarten. And the second time I read about her in the primary school in the very, precise version, but it was English and Japanese, and my mom's friend knew that I love her. So, she gave me the English version. And, that was the yeah, that was her, one of my first books that I read, really. So,
It's
um,
amazing.
yeah, so I think that people should be more interested in knowledge, really. I hope they are, really.
Look, the fact of the matter is, if we don't know about the past, we repeat it.
Yeah.
The object is to not repeat what happened
Yes, exactly.
again.
Yes, history is important at that point, really, to learning it.
Yes.
Learn it.
Actual history, not made up history.
Exactly.
Real history. What really happened. Yeah, I agree.
So, thank you very much for coming.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and I hope I've given you what you need for your podcast.
Oh, yes, yes, you did, of course. And I hope that maybe you come back again in another session.
I would love to. I would love to. We can have another discussion. That'd be great.
Thank you very much. And I hope
You're so welcome. Have a good weekend.
thank you.
Take me home, take me on a ride. I got a
Artlist
good
IO.
feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Good feeling.
Music
You
licensing
wanna know
reimagined.
this? How to hold on to it every moment. Dive into it like my love is an ocean. It's overflowing. I swear it's golden. So good that I'm rolling. Baby, you make me crazy. I'm seeing roses. Baby, just maybe you save me.
Artlist IO.
Take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine. Take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good
Music
feeling
licensing
about the
reimagined.
colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Good feeling. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Good feeling. You wanna do is move with
Artlist
me,
IO.
move with me. I'm seeing
Music licensing reimagined.